People's thinking and actions are impacted by their values. Values are those things that you believe and feel are important. Our values differ, and they drive what we want to achieve in life. Ethics helps us to decide what is morally correct or incorrect. Furthermore, values determine our priorities, whilst ethics determines to which extent our choices are right or wrong. This means that different people may view ethical aspects differently, because ethics and values get intertwined. Values that are potentially accepted by most people include self-control, transcendence, kindness and courage. Firstly, we need to understand what an ethical dilemma is. An ethical dilemma is when you find yourself conflicted, because irrespective of what you choose to do, you will compromise some or other ethical aspect. When dealing with an ethical dilemma, and knowing you will need to compromise, there are a few questions you can ask. 1. How would I see this as an outsider, or person independent of the situation? 2. What is the impact of the outcome on others? Will there be a negative impact on anyone? 3. What is my intention in making this decision? 4. Can I speak to someone I trust to give me an opinion? 5. How will I view this decision in the long term, when looking back at the situation? And 6. Am I comfortable telling my manager, family and society? We will now have a look at what mostly drive unethical behavior in organizations and unpack some of the potential root causes for unethical behavior. Then we will consider how organizations influence ethics. And lastly, we will provide you with some questions to ask in order to assess ethics in an organization. Let's take a look at what mostly drive unethical behavior in organizations. Power. People in positions of power often believe they are not vulnerable to consequences of unethical behavior. They also often believe that a different rule set applies to them, or that they are above the rules. The need to be liked. People pleasers do not like to make unpopular decisions. The need to be liked overshadows everything. And often they are vulnerable when it comes to decisions that could breach ethical lines. This could be worsened by friendships developed with co-workers. It is always more difficult to say no to friends. The example set by management. If management behaves unethically, staff will follow suit. It starts small. For example, a disregard for timekeeping. Later on, staff may notice management behaves in a manner not respectful towards customers. They may follow the example set, and it could snowball into major ethical breaches. Personal gain. Justifying something because of personal circumstances or needs. The person may, for example, behave unethically because of financial gain. Ever heard someone say, "I have done so much for my organization, they owe it to me"? That is entitlement. The person justifies unethical behavior through entitlement. Understanding the root cause behind unethical behavior is important. Next, we will consider what organizations should focus on to improve the ethical environment. How management reacts to concerns raised is important. Management cannot resolve all issues noted, but concerns raised should never be ignored. It should be acknowledged and feedback given to staff that raised concerns. Management should not get annoyed or irritated when concerns are raised. This will lead to staff not being willing to raise concerns in future, and ethical matters potentially not being raised. Lastly, no matter how big or small the concern is, management should deem it important enough to understand the actual root of the concern raised. Organizations setting unrealistic performance targets. Expecting staff to perform exceptionally well without giving them the right resources and support may drive them to unethical behavior. Performance targets must be realistic and achievable. Ethics not being discussed in the organization. When ethics and what it entails is not discussed, the ethical environment will deteriorate. Policies and procedures should incorporate ethics aspects. Ethical decision-making principles should form part of daily operations. And lastly, management should not wait for dilemmas or issues before ethics gets discussed. Bias can have an extremely negative effect on the ethics in an organization. Bias would mean that the same rules do not apply to everyone. Senior management have their own set of rules. Bias could also apply to staff that have worked for the organization for a long period of time. They are allowed to circumvent certain controls and it is accepted, without recourse. It could also be that friends of managers can bend or break rules with no repercussions. Let's consider the questions you can ask in terms of ethics in your organization. Your answers to these questions should give you insight on the health of your organization's ethical environment. Do you think that managers act as if they are above the rules? Do you think your fellow staff members do the right thing, even if it is not in their personal interest? Do we allow top performers to violate ethical aspects? Do you trust leadership's decision-making? Do staff feel pressured to achieve objectives, even if doing so is not aligned with our ethical standards and values? Do staff feel they can question decisions that they are not comfortable with? In closing, we leave you with this quote from W. Clement Stone. Have the courage to say no. Have the courage to face the truth. Do the right thing because it is right. These are the magic keys to living your life with integrity.